Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the Cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Cardano and its native token ADA in search of a market cycle bottom. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and go stake your ADA with the Into the Cryptoverse stake pools, the ITC, ITC2, and ITC3 stake pools. You'll find information on how to do that in the description below. We also do have the Into the Cryptoverse premium sale going on at intothecryptoverse.com. We will find all sorts of charts for Cardano, such as on-chain charts, price metric charts, and then a number of other things. So let's go ahead and jump in. A lot has happened with ADA over the last several months, and I kind of want to take a step back and look at this from a very broad picture first, and then talk about where we stand today. All right. So this journey that we're taking with ADA, at least on this channel, started in 2019, and in 2019 we really spoke a lot about how ADA was likely going to see a parabolic rally. Now, remember, in 2019, when we talked about this, ADA was trading for like 3 pennies, right? 3 cents at the time. So for us to draw a line taking it up to like $10 or more was kind of ridiculous, right? It was kind of ridiculous. But still, despite ADA only being at 2 or 3 cents, at the time, it still saw a move that took it to over $3. So over a 100x move. You can see that I drew this going out into 2022. However, I would argue that this is not likely going to happen. I think instead of seeing a parabolic rally, we're in search of a market cycle bottom right now, not in search of a parabolic rally. So let's go ahead and do away with the idea that we're going to see new all-time highs this year for ADA. It's unlikely going to happen. Not necessarily because of ADA, but just necessarily because the entire market is in a bear market. All markets everywhere, for the most part, are completely risk off, right? A lot of people are not investing in risk on assets right now, and cryptocurrencies, whether we like it or not, are risk on assets. So, you go look at these types of things, and they always seem kind of ridiculous when you draw them, especially before they go up 100x. And then once they go up 100x and you're looking at a $3 ADA, it's like, all right, well, it's only, to see these higher prices, only a 3x. It's not like a 300x like it was once upon a time. But regardless, what I want to talk about is, in search of a cycle bottom, the emotions that come with that and the discipline it will take, I think, to ultimately get through it. So remember that Cardano, when we looked at it over here back in March of 2020, no one really cared about crypto back then, right? Let's look at this video. I mean, it's 4,000 views, 4,203 views back in March of 2020. So there weren't really that many people that cared to what I had to say about Cardano and its native token ADA. But the same thing will likely be said in a few months. Okay, my guess is at some point this year, we will see a very similar type of thing happen where no one's going to really want to buy. And I mean, already you're seeing a lot of people lose interest in a lot of altcoins. So my best advice to you, not only on Cardano, but for a lot of cryptocurrencies, is that at some point, once Bitcoin has really fulfilled going through the bear market that it's currently in, there should be a lot of altcoins that are but a shell of their former selves in terms of their actual valuation. Okay, remember, during a bull market, the valuations go insanely over where they should be, but in a bear market, they go kind of insanely below where they should be. Okay, so I want to really talk about this phase, which I think is coming up, and how to navigate that, and how to what are some strategies that you can employ. And then the last thing is, we talked about this scenario potentially playing out where ADA could see another 60% drop. We made a video when it was like 92 cents, and I was like, look guys, if Bitcoin does not get back above the bull market support band, if it does not get back above the 20-week SMA and it gets rejected by it, you're likely looking at ADA, dropping at least another 60%, back down to approximately 36 cents or so, between 30 and 40 cents. So that's actually played out now, right? I mean, look, it's actually played out. If we go look at the chart for ADA, you can see, in fact, when we switch this over to normal candles, you can see that it actually came down to about 38 cents. So we've had that 60% drop, right? We've had it. So is that the cycle bottom? Is it not? What would a cycle bottom look like? And how long would we likely stay in that? Well, one thing to consider right now is that it doesn't really, the chart of ADA is kind of irrelevant for finding a cycle bottom. It all comes back to Bitcoin. Okay, it all comes back to Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is still finding itself, unfortunately, in a bear market. So it doesn't really matter the news that Cardano has. It doesn't really matter, right? I mean, it could be the best project, the best cryptocurrency, and be solving all sorts of problems. But if it's in a bear market, no one cares, right? It's simply no one cares, and that's just the truth, right? It's the cold hard truth. No one cares about these things in a bear market. Okay, I mean, to be completely honest, most people don't even understand these things in a bull market either. They just ride the price momentum, but in a bear market, they certainly don't care. So, Bitcoin's in a bear market. We need to understand that Bitcoin could, in fact, go lower than 25K. I mean, we've seen that before. If you look at where we are right now towards 25K, it was about a 63% drop. We have seen drops in the past that were on par with 80% or more. However, we do know that with Bitcoin, we have seen diminished volatility to the downside as well. For instance, the first cycle, the downside volatility was like 94%. The second one was 86 to 87. The last one was 84%. So I don't know exactly where this one's going to end up. My guess is it hopefully won't be as bad as 84%. 84% would put us all the way down at around $11,000. So I'm guessing it won't be quite that bad. But even if Bitcoin were to go down, say, let's call it 75%, you're looking at a $16,000 to $17,000 Bitcoin. So if that happens, then ADA is very likely going to experience further selling pressure. Okay. Now, the thing with the altcoin market, and specifically in ADA in this case, we need to understand where we are. All right. So one thing we could do, we can kind of look at this trend over here and talk about some similarities between it, right? We had a cycle peak. We had a cycle peak. We had, I mean, you can imagine going below the bull market support band if it existed, going back up to it, getting rejected by it. That was perhaps there. Coming back up to it again and getting rejected by it. That was perhaps right there. And then we've had another leg down, right? I think there's reason to believe that, like, we're potentially in this leg down, right? We're in this leg down right here. And if that's the case, then we could see a few months of price action by ADA in this range, right? Like in this range, somewhere between, say, 30 to 80 cents, 30 to 70 cents. I don't know. You might say, well, it's a pretty big range. Yeah, it's crypto. I mean, get over it. It's what it is. It's crypto. It's pretty volatile. So then it sort of begs the question: will we see that move right here? That last move down. We know we actually had a lower low during the pandemic crash, but we'll write that off to a black swan event. We did have another drop at the very end of it, which marked a cycle bottom for Bitcoin at least, and arguably was an important level because at that point ADA went up 300, 400%. If ADA is going to go up 300, 400%, it's not a bad idea to have a position in it at that point. Whether it means it's going to go up sustainably or not, that's still a move that a lot of people, I'm sure, would like to ride. So right now, ADA is clearly in a bear market, just like it was in a bear market over here. At some point, my guess is a little later this year, we're going to enter into an accumulation phase. Okay? During said accumulation phase, you'll likely see moves that are several times back up to the upside. Okay? So be aware of that. In the same manner, I want you to think about where we stand right now. Think about how disgusted you might be with the price action of crypto. Right? It's awful. Right? We're not going to sugarcoat it. It's bad. Bitcoin's price action has been bad. Cardano's has been worse. Ethereum's has been bad. The whole market's just been pretty bad all in all. Imagine how hard it would be to experience, let's say, another 2 to 3 months of being range bound here or something. And then what if we have another leg down? Who's going to want to buy, right? Who's going to want to buy at this point? That's why back in 2019, I was saying, look, guys, no one wants to buy at these prices. 4,000 people watched this video. Here's another video. 12,000 people watched. This was when we were trading for a few pennies as well. And we talked about this move. Again, the prediction was too high. We only went to $3, but it was still like a 150x move. So not a bad take. So then what I want people to be prepared for, what I could easily see playing out over the next several months, is ADA continuing a downtrend / sideways action. Okay, so don't troll me if it comes back up here and then just comes right back down. It's all a downtrend, right? It's a bear market right now, right? We're currently in a bear market. So My guess is that, remember, altcoins do not do well when, especially when Bitcoin puts in a lower low, right? And Bitcoin put in a lower low not that long ago. So now that Bitcoin has put in a lower low, if you go look, Bitcoin put in a lower low of June 2018, and then it went sideways until November, and then the bottom fell out. Bitcoin put in a lower low here in May. So if it were to go sideways for a few more months, let's suppose Bitcoin just went sideways, what do you think happened to ADA between June of 2018 and November of 2018? June of 2018 through November. I mean, it was we actually had a push back up to the bull market support band in line with Bitcoin's push back up to the 200-day SMA as well back then, and we continued to bleed for a while, okay, because Bitcoin was unable to get back above it. So if a similar thing were to play out today, you might see at some point within the next few weeks, you might see, it's hard to know exactly when the local bottom is going to be, but my guess is you would see some type of a move back up to the bull market support band eventually. If it gets rejected by it and then puts in yet another lower low, ADA will likely continue the same trend. But eventually, Bitcoin is going to hit some type of a cycle bottom. And one of the ways to maybe try to figure out where that could be is looking at the logarithmic regression band and noting that a lot of times Bitcoin tends to bottom out around things like, say, the 200-week moving average. Sometimes it's the 300-week moving average, especially if you get black swan type events. So if you were to see Bitcoin come back down to these levels down here, and you see ADA coming back down, okay, let's suppose we already got this drop right here, 60% down to, back to the 30 to 40 cents range. We already saw that happen. My guess is that a best case scenario will eventually sweep those lows again, is what I would consider best case. Even if we come back up here, I would still think we'll probably come back down here eventually and re-sweep these lows. And if Bitcoin gets another leg down to closer to 20K or something, there's a good chance ADA will as well. And if this happens, then you're looking at what I would call another accumulation phase going into a new market cycle. Okay, so if something like this were to happen, where ADA is trading in this range for several months, maybe even longer, this would be what I would consider to be an accumulation phase for the next market cycle. Okay, now I will say yet again, I bet you a lot of people here aren't gonna still be here during this phase. Okay, so I'm just warning you now. Even if Bitcoin could easily get that bounce back up to the 200-day moving average in the short term, and people might get excited about Bitcoin again. But if it just gets rejected again, just like it did in 2018, right? First rejection, second rejection. Okay, so if it gets that another rejection by the 200-day moving average, you should be aware that ADA will likely continue with the bleed down. And not only will Bitcoin bleed, but ADA will likely bleed against Bitcoin because Bitcoin's a blue chip and ADA's not. I mean, I know you guys wish ADA were a blue chip, but it's not. I mean, it's not. It is what it is. So ADA can bleed a lot more than Bitcoin in a bear market. Why do we know that? Well, look at the ADA Bitcoin valuation. Look at this. I mean, it's already down 70%. So ADA is down against the US dollar. Sure, everything is. But ADA is also down against Bitcoin. What am I looking for a potential reaccumulation phase for ADA against Bitcoin? Where would I find it a more attractive buying opportunity? Well, if we were to go back down to the bottom of the range, you could argue that the ADA Bitcoin valuation is in fact an oscillator, okay? Meaning it goes to the bottom, it comes back to the top, back to the bottom, back to the top, and now we're in the process of going back to the bottom. So if the ADA valuation were to drop against Bitcoin another 75% or something from the current levels, then I think that would be an incredibly attractive accumulation phase for ADA. Not to say that Bitcoin wouldn't be attractive, I think it would, but just to say, look, the risk reward on ADA, if it's in the bottom of this range, goes a lot higher. I don't know if we're going to make it back down here, but I will say there's a strong chance that it easily could happen if this bear market continues for a few more months. And if that happens, you'll likely be presented with a similar accumulation phase as to what we saw in a prior cycle. So you need to be prepared for this scenario. Now, 75% drop by ADA against Bitcoin would be pretty brutal. This would be a really brutal move. To give you an idea, for a constant valuation of Bitcoin, that would put ADA at around 14 cents. That would be pretty brutal. Now, remember, it doesn't have to necessarily mean a constant Bitcoin. Perhaps Bitcoin will be at a different price at the time, and so the valuation of ADA would be somewhat different. But the argument that I'm trying to put forth here is that if this bear market continues, whether Bitcoin gets a bounce or not, and we sort of just continue, if we're currently in this leg down right here, followed by some sideways movement, followed by a final leg down, right? So if it looks something like this, and then we get another leg down, this is what I would consider, a future accumulation phase going into a new market cycle. Unfortunately, I do think we have to call this a new market cycle, and it's just a matter of trying to figure out where exactly the cycle bottom is going to be. So if you look at it against the Bitcoin valuation, I would argue that ADA could fall a lot more because Bitcoin usually controls the market. Now, here's something to consider. I said before, it doesn't necessarily mean that ADA has to go to those lower valuations against the US dollar, because it could mean that it goes down to these levels when Bitcoin's in a bull market. What's been smoking, right? What does this mean? Well, look at this. ADA bottomed against Bitcoin locally in December of 2018 when Bitcoin hit a market cycle bottom. Right here. Okay? That's when ADA bottomed locally against Bitcoin in December of 2018. And then it popped up for a while. But then Bitcoin went on a bull market in the first half of 2019. That's what took ADA to the lower valuations. So you could see the ADA Bitcoin valuation go down 75%, but for all we know, Bitcoin could be at 40K or something if Bitcoin goes on a bull market either later this year or early next year, right? I mean, it could look completely different. So perhaps you would have an ADA valuation that's 75 or 76% down against Bitcoin, but maybe it's only down, 40 or 50% from where it currently is against the US dollar, and therefore you're looking closer to around, the 30-cent range or something in terms of trying to find like some type of a market cycle bottom, maybe between 20 to 30 cents or something. Don't tell me it can't happen. I mean, we already went to 38 cents, so let's kind of do away with the "it can't happen" mantra. So, I look at the market and say, the market right now is somewhat brutal, and Bitcoin does remain in this bear market. I look locally and I see that Bitcoin has seen 7 red weeks in a row. We're currently in the 8th one. Hard to know if it's going to print red or not, but it's opening red. We're currently 8 weeks in a row. We could easily see a local bounce, and if we do, you would likely see that reflected in the valuation of ADA. You would want to be looking towards the bull market support band, which is currently at around $1 and dropping relatively quickly. So if you just imagine this keeps on dropping. If Bitcoin gets a bounce, you'll likely see ADA bounce back up too. But if it gets rejected at 70 or 80 cents and Bitcoin goes down and puts in another lower low, you're looking at a very similar move for ADA as well to put in a lower low and then eventually try to figure out some type of reaccumulation phase before hopefully starting a new market cycle. So I want you to be completely honest with yourself and say, look, we're in a bear market. We know that altcoins get absolutely wrecked in a bear market. We know that the Bitcoin valuations of these altcoins get wrecked in a bear market, and they can also get wrecked in a bull market. If we go down to the bottom of the valuations that Bitcoin hit in the bear market against the ADA Bitcoin valuation, you'd be looking at another, 55% drop in the valuation of ADA, about a 55% drop. A 55% drop from the current price of ADA would put ADA at around 25 cents or so. Okay, so another 50% correction. Don't tell me it can't happen. I mean, I lived through this one over here, and I even started buying ADA at 10 cents, and I thought I was smart, and then it dropped 80%. You might look at it and say, well, 10 cent ADA, why are you complaining? Didn't really feel smart at the time because it dropped another 80%. People forget how brutal these things can be. Starting in here at 10 cents, it still dropped, 83% until it finally hit a bottom. So you have to remember that in the bear market, it's not all fun and games. It can still be brutal. It's just the bull markets have a way of making it seem like these accumulation phases that can span hundreds of percent don't really matter. So again, I would argue that this is a scenario that you need to be prepared for Cardano. And to say, Bitcoin's in a bear market, and if Bitcoin's in a bear market and getting rejected by these bull market support band and all these resistance levels, we understand that Cardano is as well. We talked about that in this video, a potential move back down to the 36 cents area. We went to 38 cents already. I think now we're probably going to spend the next several months in search of a market cycle bottom. Following that, we'll likely head into an accumulation phase. Following that, hopefully we'll gear up for another bull market. But that's where we currently stand. Unfortunately, we did not see a breakout to the upside. Primarily, I think, because Bitcoin just got rejected by the bull market support band. And it probably got rejected because the Fed is hawkish. And the Fed is hawkish because inflation is soaring. So unfortunately, the saying of don't fight the Fed continues to apply to cryptocurrencies. Don't fight the Fed. They're hawkish. Therefore, the markets are risk off. If markets are risk off, they don't tend to be as investors don't tend to be as adventurous with regards to cryptocurrencies, equities too, but especially crypto. And if they're not as interested in crypto, then there's just less demand. Eventually, the price falls down. Eventually, the Fed will pivot. We'll hit some type of a cycle bottom, and then we'll likely start the process again. And in the meantime, people will continue to build. So, hopefully, you guys enjoy the content. I know these last few videos on ADA haven't necessarily been what you wanted to hear. But the bearish case is an important case to talk about because it can help hopefully prepare you for leading into a future accumulation zone that will allow you to, to take advantage of a theoretical future bull market. Okay. So if you miss this accumulation phase over here, there's a good chance you're going to see another one come up here in a few months. And if it does, then you have to figure out if you want to take advantage of it. If not, then so be it. But even remember, even in accumulation phases, we can still drop 70% and then go back up 3x, 4x, then drop again. We went to 10 cents to 2 cents, back to 10 cents, back to 2 cents, and then we back to 10 cents, and then that time we broke out. So remember, the accumulation phases can last a while. You'll see all sorts of, intra-accumulation phase volatility, but it doesn't mean it's not an accumulation phase if it happens. Right now, we're clearly just in a downtrend. So I think we're just in one of these phases over here where we're, in search of a cycle bottom. We haven't found it quite yet, but I do think we will be finding it sometime this year. If you guys like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel. Remember to check out intothecryptoverse.com for Into the Cryptoverse Premium. We do have a sale going on right now. We have a lot of Cardano charts. So if you want to check it out, you can lock in the low rate. And remember to stake your ADA with the Into the Cryptoverse stake pool. Thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.